Welcome to another episode of Riding in the Weeds. Today, this episode is for you if you find yourself comparing yourself to other people's progress, turning up to a party and you're like, wow, I wish I was the badass in the room. And you never feel that way. The thing is, we quite often don't know what the video is everybody else is watching. We don't know the movie that everyone else is seeing. And the most important thing is that we need to be the star of our own movies. And we need to step in to what we're doing, what we desire to do, so that we can actually move forward. We can celebrate. We can understand how far we have gone. So if you ever feel like you're living Groundhog Day and nothing is changing, you got two options. You can either look at it and go, what do I need to change? Or maybe it's actually a mindset shift. So that's what we're going to really dig into today. So join us as we go on this little journey around not comparing yourself to other people's highlight reels and making sure that you really understand what it takes to be in action and the results that they desire in their lives. You might be doing this already. You're just not thinking the right way about it. And if you're not doing this already, well, then there's easy ways you can change that too. So let's get started. Ginny, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right for a rainy day here in Maryland. It's a little dreary.
Little Drury. That's actually a really good place to start because there is such a thing as seasonal disorder. What's the word I'm looking for?
Seasonal affective
Sad.
disorder, sad, yes.
Yeah. And somebody might live in Mexico and it's a sunny day every day. And they're actually excited when it rains, right? But I really, really got that too when I was going into the winter and we hadn't left yet and things were going on and life was a challenge and then the sun hadn't come out. And it really starts to bring you down. And this is a really good time when you start looking around at what other people are achieving and what other people are doing and going, why can't that be me? What is it about me that's broken that means that I'm not stepping into the fullest version of myself? How did they get to be such a badass? Meanwhile, I'm over here being Lane Betty.
Hot Mess Express.
Hot Mess Express.
Uh,
Exactly. So, one of the first notes I have here is that the courageous person is scared too. We never really see all the small things that people do in order to get the results that they want to get. And actually, I threw out a question to the Facebook world yesterday that was if I had a magic wand and I could fix any issue that you have with your biking, what would it be? And the most common answer was the bike's fine, it's the rider that's the problem. And what I found really interesting about this answer is that that is such a blanket statement, right? There is nothing wrong with the rider. The rider is actually kick ass awesome. And every single person that is not riding a mountain bike is looking at you as the rider going, wow, that chick's awesome. Whether you suck or you're at the X Games, it actually doesn't matter to your group of people at the office when you come back from a weekend of biking and say, yeah, I've been mountain biking all weekend. They're not thinking, yeah, well, I wonder how good you are. They're like, wow, she went biking, right? And that's all that matters. And they're all in their little minds having that same thing going on, going, I wish I was that cool. I wish I had the courage to go mountain biking. And yet you don't see A, them comparing themselves to you, and B, you haven't seen all of the things that you had to do to get to be the chick in the office that mountain bikes.
yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think we often get so caught up in thinking about how we appear and how we are or are not, if we're worried about what we can't do, that we don't actually have time to pay attention to anybody else. So you really shouldn't worry about what other people are thinking about you because they're not. They really aren't. They're too wrapped up in thinking about what they can't do or what they wish they could do. That's the way our nature is, but we can choose to do it differently. We don't have to do it that way. But the first thing I think is important is to recognize that whatever someone's success is, you have no idea what went into that. We once asked our landlord, who is an extremely successful commercial real estate businessman who had an extremely large farm that we were renting, and we asked him, "What's your business advice?" And his advice was, "You have to be willing to lose sleep over it." And that should pretty much tell you the state of virtually every business owner. Obviously, many people learn to manage things a lot better than perpetually losing sleep, but I can guarantee you that whatever somebody has achieved, on some level, somewhere along the way, they've lost sleep over it. They've had a hard time, they have struggled. Even the overnight successes, I'm sorry I call bullshit on that. Someone may have some kind of massive jump, something goes viral, or the song that suddenly makes it on the radio from the band you've never heard of. There's countless stories out there of quote unquote overnight successes. What you can't see is how many thousand posts that person made before they had one that went viral, or how many hours and hours of practicing someone spent on their craft before they got noticed. There are always so many steps leading up to anyone's success that for most of us, if we knew what it was like to be in somebody else's shoes, we'd be like, let me out of here, get me back in my own shoes fast, because everything is hard. Everything is a lot harder than it looks from the outside. And I think that's one of the biggest things we need to remember in an effort to extend ourselves grace for where we are, and kindness and compassion. I have no problem coaching and supporting a friend when they're feeling doubt or when they're having a hard time and offering them grace and compassion. Why should I not offer that to myself as if I were my own friend? Why do we not do that?
Yeah, you brought up a whole lot of stuff in there. First thing, I'm going to throw out a couple of examples. The Beatles, if you did not know this, they literally went out. They sucked when they started. And they went out and they played every single, I think they went to Europe. They went out of country. They went to the States. Sorry. And they no one knew them. And they played, I'm getting help from my peanut gallery here. They went to the States, no one knew them, and they played every single backwater bar that they could find. And they played one, two shows a day, every day for years. It was a good couple of years before one day they ended up on the right stage at the right time. And I think they have one of those stories like the band that was supposed to go on wasn't there. They went on instead. They killed it. The only reason they were as tight as they were at that point was because they had practiced and practiced and practiced. And then suddenly everyone's like, oh my God, there's this new band, the Beatles. They just turned up one day and got their lucky break. No, they worked really, really hard, but you don't see that. There was an event recently, Jamie Kima Lima. Her name rhymes, so I can never quite get it. And she just put out a book called Worthy, and she had an event where she got to be in Tony Robbins' studio. It was called Unstoppable. It was a 12-hour marathon where pretty much all the greats of the greats, if you think of anyone, Oprah, Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, like all the people were there at this event. And what 90% of the presenters did was they shared their backstory because the event was about becoming worthy and feeling worthy. And so they all told these stories of like, when I was a kid, I struggled with this, that, or the other thing. I came from this, and this is how I got here. It's about taking the actions, it's about knowing what you desire and then stepping into being the person that can have that thing. And every single one of them has that story. And the reason why that's the number one motivational thing that people do these days is tell the backstory is because they're trying to let you see up their skirts. They're trying to let you in the back door so you can see that most of the time, these people didn't come from overnight success. I was at a conference this weekend and Lisa Nichols spoke, famous from The Secret. And all I got from her story at the end, like I got a lot from it, but the key piece I got, and I've been getting this a lot, is like, I want to be able to tell a story like that. So, what actions can I take if I was going to be in 4 years' time telling a story about how I got to where I am right now? What are the things I want to do so that I can tell a story about them later? So that I can have people be like, wow, you did a visualization about having a massive house and all your family being really excited that you've helped them and you've done all these amazing things. And then the visualization was literally, and then you leave the house and you're driving and you're late for this event and you're the key speaker. And then you realize that the reason why there's a massive traffic jam is because all of these people are going to see you. And then you get there and everyone's like, you go to speak and you say, thank you for being here. And everyone starts saying, no, thank you, thank you. And Lisa tells the story. And then she's like, I hated this visualization. And then she says, and then I'm on my way to an event and I'm late. And I'm like, roll down my window. I'm like, can I just sneak in front of you? And the guy says, sure, because I'm on my way to see you. And then somebody else rolls up and they roll down the window and they're like, I'm going to get in right behind you because you're the only reason I'm going to this event. And literally, the visualization that she hated 10 years later was the reality that she was living. But she started from nothing. And 27 years of making the decisions that enabled her to stand on that stage and tell this incredible story that sounds like magic. Even when she tells it with the backstory, you're still like, this is magic. I want to be like her. How do I get to be like her? Well, she literally just told you. So I think at the end of the day, it is so much about getting into that headspace of being willing to suck, being willing to fail, but really asking yourself the question, if I was going to be telling this story, what are the parts of the story I want to have in here so that it makes it a better story? And that's what the people that you're looking at. I want to be a mountain biker. Well, have you bought a bike? Well, no, I'm scared because I don't know what kind of bike to get. But I can't believe you're a mountain biker. I wish I was like you. Well, go buy a bike. Okay, well, I'm going to buy a bike. I bought a bike. Right. Well, I'm still not like you. I want to be like you. Well, go riding. Have you ridden your bike yet? No, I'm too scared. Okay, well, you got to go and ride the bike. What if I suck? You're going to suck. I was just listening to a training this morning, and the guy said, embrace the suck because everyone sucks. We embrace the suck every time we get on here. We're like, what are we going to talk about? Not sure. Let's take some notes. Let's figure it out. We're going to take the steps. And, hopefully you're listening to this going, wow, thank you. That piece of knowledge really, really helped. And what if we just decided not to?
Yeah. I think embracing the suck is the most important thing. And this brings up another metaphor that when you put a seed in the ground, it is dark. Things don't germinate in the light, they only germinate in the dark. And being a seed, that is actually a really tough thing to do to actually sprout. Seeds have to break the outer part of the shell, and it's hard. Growing is hard, changing is hard. It is not easy. But the only way to do it is to keep going. And if you never try anything, you'll never get anywhere. And Everybody who has anything of any measure of success, whatever your opinion is of what that means, because that can mean a lot of things, has worked really hard to get there and has had a lot of suck along the way. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of tears, a lot of stress, and a lot of worry to get where they are. But there's no reason that you can't do that too. You just have to choose to be willing to stay in the discomfort. I dare say I am more of a hot mess express on most days than I am anything else. But I keep waking up. I keep trying to show up to the best of my ability on any given day, which is going to change. Don't forget that. It's going to look different day to day. But we just keep showing up. And 3/4 of the time, Tasha's not kidding. We have no idea what we're talking about before we
Well,
sit down.
what we're going to talk about. We know
Yeah.
what we're talking
Yes.
about.
Yes. We have no idea. We don't have a plan. Let's put it that way. There is no plan. But what inspires us is what's happening in our lives, what we're going through in the moment, and what we see happening in the bigger patterns around us. And so we just try to reflect that back with whatever wisdom. And I dare say, most of the time, the things we were talking about and sharing about are for our own benefit as much as they are for anyone else's. Because sometimes we just need to hear our own wisdom. How often do you treat yourself with the same compassion that you would treat a friend? I am like 100% guilty of that. Absolutely.
That's It's so true. It reminds me when I was a teenager, or as I was leaving my teen years, and I had a job at a surf shop, and I've always had self-image issues. And I remember I was probably 18, maybe, and I remember going to a different shop, and I was helping out, and I was working with this girl. I'd never really met her before. I knew her because we communicate as shops. And I remember spending the entire day being like, this chick is so rad. And she's really pretty. And she's got a great figure. And I honestly spent the entire day just admiring how cool I thought this chick was. After I got home that day, I was reflecting. I was like, she was probably a size bigger than me. And she didn't do anything different in her life. She loved to snowboard, so did I. She liked doing all these active things, so did I. And it was really interesting. I did take that reflection and I turned it round on myself. And I was like, well, if you thought she was really cool, then maybe you're okay too. And it was such a fascinating moment to just become present to. Another time I did the same thing was when I was scrolling through my Facebook. I was like, man, people on my Facebook feed, they're cool. Like they are all up to really cool shit. And then I thought about the whole concept that we are generally within one degree of the people that we know, right? You're either one step or one step below people in your pay grade. And I took that and was like, well, maybe that's the same with life experience. In your Facebook group, you've probably got a bunch of people that are just ahead of you doing slightly cooler shit than you're doing. And you got people behind you. They're pretty close, but they're up to cool stuff, but they're not quite pushing the envelope in quite the same way as you are. That circle of influence, that says something about what you're up to. So take a look, and if you are scrolling through your Facebook page and there are people in there that are doing really cool stuff, there's a good chance that you're also up to something cool. And take a good look too, because if there are not people that are inspiring at all on your Facebook, then that might be indicative of how much courage you actually have and how much you could step up your game. And this isn't to be negative towards yourself, but it is a reflection and it's an opportunity to go, wow, okay, if I just took a couple more actions, I could be where that person is. And there's people that are not doing quite the same as I'm doing. Is there something I could share that would help them? Could I actually be a driving force in somebody else's life to do the same thing and give the same inspiration as the people that are ahead of you are doing, because I firmly believe that we are all inspiring to other people. And whether you're going mountain biking for the first time ever, well, you got to share that, because there's a whole lot of people out there that have never mountain biked before and they're scared to take that first step, and you just did. And so you thinking that what you're doing is lame because, oh, you've never mountain biked before and I'm just getting started and I'm not very good. Yeah, but you're doing better than the person that's sitting on the couch, not doing anything, wishing, watching YouTube videos and not doing anything. Take a good hard look, because you are inspiring somebody out there to do something. And that is worth celebrating. And that kind of brings us into that next little bit of, you've got to celebrate the small steps. And you got to really take a reflection at the end of the year, at the end of the day, at the end of the week, and be like, what did I get done? Have I moved forward? Am I going backwards? But if you don't measure it, you don't know. If you don't have friends around you to reflect it back, then you don't know. If you don't have a coach to be like, hey, I know you think you didn't get anywhere this year, but let me just tell you what I think of your progress. And I just recently had that experience. My coach was like, yeah, you might not think you did much, but let me just show you what I saw. And it was absolutely inspiring for myself to be like, oh, here I am thinking I've totally disappointed her. I've been the down person in the group, and everyone in the group is just like, you've inspired us. You're kicking ass. And here I am kicking my ass, thinking that I need to do better. But yet I just need to keep playing the game. And when we stay
Yeah.
in the game, we can't lose. And I just recently, I know I keep saying this, I've been in a lot of things. I'm working on my inspiration over here, but I was in something, and it was so cool to hear this coach say this, because I felt like she was talking to me and just giving me a huge high five. But the only way you lose the game is when you stop playing. And the player that can be in the game and keep playing to win, even when you are losing, that's when you really, really start to make progress. And that's when you start to anchor in those stories that you can tell in hindsight and people go, wow, that was magic. I wish that could happen to me.
Being able to be introspective about where we are and where we came from is a really useful tool, because so often the changes that happen are so subtle that frequently we don't realize that we've made a change. And we get so stuck on where we aren't that we don't realize that where we are is somewhere that we were wishing we could be in our past. And I dare say many of the things that I have now are things I wished for 5, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But I have them now. But am I aware that I have actually achieved something that I was wishing for back then? Because if you're not aware of it, then you'll never realize that you actually achieved a goal. Too often, I think we get focused on the next step, the next step, the next step, and we aren't conscious of all of the progress. And in the thick of it, it never feels like you're making any progress. It's not linear anyway. We know that. We've talked about that before. Many days it feels like one step forward, two steps back. But it's the culmination of the continual work on it that allows us to make progress. And it allows us to be able to make those changes in the long term. So don't compare yourself to somebody else's highlight reel, because their highlight reel is not the full picture. And you have to make sure that you are conscious and present with the changes you're making, because I guarantee somebody probably was wishing they were in your shoes in some capacity or another. There's probably somebody admiring what you do out there. There's probably somebody appreciating something that you have or that you're doing. And when we forget that about ourselves, it's so easy to fall into that trap. It's so easy to get drugged down. And you have to make sure you're reaching out when you hit those places because sometimes it takes a friend to be able to reflect back to you what's really going on. We certainly do that for each other all the time. That's half the time we spend when we're not recording is like, hey, do you realize you're actually doing pretty darn good right now?
Yeah,
you know?
it is so valuable. I was reflecting, I've got flies everywhere. And actually, that's a really good point too. Last year, I remember I was on a Zoom call with my girlfriend and she's sitting in the snow. And I'm like, oh, Nicole, these flies, they're driving me insane. And she looks at me, she's like, Tasha, I wish I had flies. Because then I'd be
Right?
somewhere warm. I was like, oh, thank you for the reframe. I like that. That's perfect. So, quite often, the thing that you are frustrated with is actually something that somebody else would absolutely love to have that problem. It's not entitlement. It's actually just the reality of like, take a look, take a step back, and you might actually be able to build some of those tools. Another little note that I had here, which again is a bit of a personal story. We've talked about confidence doesn't just find you, motivation doesn't just find you. A lot of it is really the actions that we take. And I have been trying to really nail down what it is I do for people. And over the weekend, I was like, yeah, I am a confidence coach that works with women who want to be badass on their mountain bike and in their lives. And then I was on a call yesterday, and my coach says to me, Tash, you know, confidence. And I'm like, yeah, confidence feels a little fluffy. And she's like, yeah, you're not fluffy. Anyone who listens to this podcast will probably agree with my coach that I am far from fluffy. And, she was trying to tell me, like, I'm launching my bike confidence mastery course. It's a 6-week course. And the whole idea is that I teach you the skills you need on your bike. I match them with the mindset that you need to go out and execute those skills so that you can XXX, right? And I've been using confidence in that XXX spot. But she's like, it's about performance. It's about getting stronger and it's about having fun. She's like, because honestly, Tash, you're just about fun and adventure. So to not put that in there would not make any sense. And I'm like, well, okay, break this down for me. And I got off the call and I was walking this morning on the beach and I was like, I'm a performance coach. Because when you perform at your best, you know what you get? You get confidence. And when you're confident, you're motivated to go and do more of it. And I have been so scared to call myself a performance coach or even state that I can help you get stronger and be able to step into the life that you want to live, whether that's on your bike or whether that's in every day so that you can do things like move to Mexico or whatever it is. Maybe you want to have kids, but you're scared you won't be a good mom. Maybe you want to get a dog, but you're afraid that you won't give that dog a good life because you don't think you'll have time to train it. That is what I do, and I'm very, very good at it. But I was so scared because I'd look around at everybody else that was a performance coach or that was a strength coach. I'm like, I can't do that. But the other day when I was in a seminar and the lady said, money is not the goal. Money is the feedback that you were able to do the thing that you wanted to do, that you were able to help the people that you wanted to help. Confidence is not the goal. Confidence is the feedback that you are performing at a greater level. Motivation is not the goal. Motivation is what you get when you are out there taking the actions and you're so inspired that you just want to keep doing it. And when we look around, we lose that perspective. So I would just like to finish that by saying that I'm a performance coach. And that when you work with me, you will get confidence because I'm going to give you the skills and I'm going to give you the mindset and I'm going to give you all the tools. And that is exactly what me and Ginny are working on here together as well, is creating programs so that we can coach you through having these tools and being able to step into performing at your best. And yeah, you'll get stuck in the weeds. The goal is having the skills and the tools to get out of the weeds.
100%. I love that. That subtle distinction in language is, I think, so important. And I think that overall plays right into our theme that you have to be aware that what you're looking at is not always the way it seems. And when it comes to success or to achievements, and even to things like peace of mind and to strength, oftentimes the quote success is in such incremental steps that we don't even notice that it happened. Like I said, it's never linear. And so those one step forward, two step back struggles make it feel like we haven't accomplished something. And it's only until we take a step back, whether we intentionally reflect or whether somehow we just wake up one day and realize, dang, I can do this thing. I've achieved a certain level of training with my dogs or my horse, or I'm fit enough to go do the chores and take care of the work without getting fatigued, or I can run longer or ride my bike longer or go on a harder trail. And when you get to the end, you're like, wow, I'm not as exhausted as I used to be when I did this the first time, or when I tried this before and I couldn't even get through it. And if we don't remember to have that perspective for ourselves, it will always feel like everybody else is better than we are. But we have to be willing to reflect and notice where we are doing good things and where we are making achievements. It is hard. It is really hard. And it is so super easy to get bogged down in that. That is something that I constantly have to work to remind myself, because I can fall into that trap in the blink of an eye. And when I do, I negate everything I've achieved, which is a really big disservice to myself. It's not fair to myself. And I would never treat a friend that way. I would never tell you anything like that, Tosh. Like, why
Right?
do we do it to ourselves? It's so not helpful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I want to bring this together. It's funny that this is the story I want to finish on, but there's that analogy of Picasso, and he's sitting in a coffee shop and he's scribbling on a napkin and he's drawing this little drawing on the napkin while he's having his cup of coffee. And someone comes along and they say, "Hey, that's really cool. Can I have that drawing?" And they say, "Yeah, it's $5 million." They're like, "How do you possibly think you could sell that? Like, you just scribbled it on a napkin." It's like, do you know how much time and work I've put into crafting my art so that I could draw this picture on a napkin? And to you, it seemingly looked like I did it in no time at all and it was super easy and it's worthless, but it's actually worth everything. I probably didn't tell that story quite right. However, I'm owning it as my story. And it is true in every single situation. All of the things that you have done in your life are all meaningful, even when they felt like they were meaningless. They are all valuable, even though they might feel valueless. So stand on your 2 feet. Stand on everything that has gotten you to where you are. And if you don't think that you could tell an incredible story that would inspire and motivate people because of the actions that you took instead of the actions you didn't take, then hear this message and be like, okay, I am going to start to make sure that when I make a decision about whether I'm going to do something or not do something, I'm making it from the fact of, do I want to include this in my story? In 4 years' time, when I'm telling people about how I achieved whatever it is I wanted to achieve, is this something I want to be in the story? And if it is, embrace the suck and do it.
Yeah. And if you're still having a hard time, go get support. That'll be next episode. But go get support. Because if it really is worth it to you, then it's worth it to have the support around you to help make that difference.
Yeah, and we're also going to bring on a pretty cool, I think he's a pretty special guest onto this show that will go really well with this episode. My husband, he's a Paralympian. He is a walking paraplegic, and he has all these same problems too. And I honestly look at him on every given day and I'm like, dude, you are 100 times ahead of anybody, because most people have no reason to sit on the couch and they do it anyway. And yet every single day you get up and you embrace the fact you can't feel your toes. And you embrace the fact that you might walk a little funny and you might walk slower, and you go out and you do it anyway. And so we're going to pull him in to really put the exclamation mark on this as well. And yeah, with that, I'm going to say that I am Natasha Lockie. I am a performance coach that is here to help you be stronger, whether you're wanting to do it on your mountain bike, whether you're wanting to do it in your life. And if something in this episode struck a chord in you and you want to book a one-on-one call with me to go through ways that you can start putting those actions in, or even define what the actions are, or even more, figure out what the story you want to tell is, I have free 30-minute consulting calls. All we do is chat about where you're at and ways that you can see things different. So reach out to me at Betty Gohart on Instagram or Natasha Lockie on Facebook. Or if you're on LinkedIn, I'm over there too, Natasha Lockie. And I've been posting some pretty cool articles that go along with what we're talking about on the podcast. So follow me somewhere. How about you, Ginny? Where can we find you?
Yeah. I'm Jenny Brandon. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. If you're struggling with your relationships with your pets or having a hard time achieving the goals that you want to achieve, hit me up. You can find me on the web at soulpetconnections.com or on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube under the same handle. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We love each and every one of you. You are an important part of this podcast. And you can find us on ridingintheweeds.com and on all major podcast platforms, plus YouTube. So hit us up there. We've got some extra information for you and some other fun stuff going on. We would love to hear from you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And we hope you enjoyed this, and we look forward to seeing you again.
See you next time.